Could I just ask the group leaders, two in each group, to just indicate to me whether all your delegates and members of your group are present and you're ready to start. Chantel? Coming okay. This group? You ready? Wonderful. All okay? That group there? All okay? Ready to go. And one more. If you're ready, I'd just like to start with a few small things. Firstly, I do not know by accident or by design, there's gender equality in the members of the group, the leaders, one male, one female. We have taken that into account. There seems to be a good spread of people of all ages, which is wonderful, and across all religious denominations. That's another wonderful factor. Afterwards, when you come forward for the peace education presentation from your groups, we'd like to hear from you your ideas about peace education in the home, in the school, religious education which is formal, forum seminars. Whatever you do, feel free to think outside the box and give ideas to everyone. Also, bear in mind that the Asians, the Africans, and those who come from Europe have a different mindset. We have got common things, but the mindset is quite different. And because the mindset is quite different, it is expected that when you make proposals, they could be quite different. And they will be very acceptable too. I shall now call upon, and I shall repeat first, the order of presentation. The first group to come up here would be group 3. Second group to come up would be group 5. Third group will be group 1. Fourth group will be group 4. And the fifth group will be group 2. We will have each group come up here, do their presentation, have the questions and answers, and then go back, and then I'll call for the next group to come forward. Group 3, please.
My name's Barry Sheehan. This is my co-facilitator, Mel Britton, and Mel's going to do the hard work. So I just want to introduce Mel and also say my group, we're very proud of them. They're very relational, they're very dialogical, and very peaceful. So over to Mel.
Okay, yes, I just want to add to that. I want to thank our group very much. This was a good learning for me in thinking outside the box, and I shared that with our group, that I came to this group with some certain ideas around what I thought about peace education, but you have certainly enlightened me and made me think outside my comfort zone, so I thank you for that today. Okay, we had very diverse discussion in our group, so I am basically just going to go through the recommendations that came out of all of our diverse discussion. And hopefully these recommendations will resonate with you and be something that perhaps all of the groups discussed at some point. Okay, so the first thing, well, I have to say that Barry and I we needed to put all the points together under certain headings, so I apologise if we've missed something specific, but there was a lot of information and we really needed to get it together somehow. So the first point that I think that was made during our discussion was that peace needs to come from within. So before you can do anything for other people, you actually have to be at peace with who you are and respect who you are and be grounded and be a good role model for other people. So that was our first point. Our second point that came out of our discussion was the importance of language and literacy. There was discussion around how literacy is related to further learning and the importance of giving people the ability to learn more, not just the skill of reading, but what that brings with it as well. And also the point about learning different languages, to encourage people to learn something other than English so that they are able to have dialogues with people from other cultures. The third point that we covered was how negative the media can be around news and how that can impact on us in our community. So we felt that it was really important to balance that up with positive media coverage. And one of the young people in our group talked about the fact that you really don't hear about all the good things that happen in our community. You only hear about the bad things. So to really encourage more positive thinking and discussions around positive ways of being together, let's have some more positive media coverage. The fourth point that we covered was once again around language and the idea of using a language of respect and acceptance, not just tolerance. And that has to do with when we talk about people having very different opinions to us or being from a different religion to us, do we just tolerate it or do we respect it and accept it? The fifth point was around parenting. There was a lot of discussion on how important it is that our morals and our values and our education should start at home with the parents. The parents are responsible for that. Really what came out of that though was the fact that we have to empower parents, that some are not able to do that properly. They don't have the skills or the capacity to be able to do that. So we need to look more into how we train the trainer and how we encourage and empower people to be able to do that with their young people. The last point that we talked about was the fact that there's so many good things already happening in our community. There's wonderful activities that are already in place, but how do we get that out to people who don't know about it? So it's around spreading the word, using word of mouth, and improving communication channels so that everyone can be connected and linked into things that are already happening. So that was what we covered in our group. I hope that was very succinct and it made sense.
I shall now invite questions from the floor for this group.
I think it was about point 3, point 4 regarding positive media. Why you've got commercialism, why you've got people which are intent on making profits because they've got to satisfy the needs of their shareholders, and whilst journalists are so influenced by, or should they say, trapped by their editor. I had a son working from the ABC who's now a school teacher because he was so constrained about what he could report that only about 40% of what he said was actually getting printed. Now, I think that's all very good to get this positive media coverage, and I think the government's trying to do a little bit about it at the moment. But anyway, but we've also got that we've also got social media to overcome and circumnavigate the influences that main bodies is. So the thing is that there's many groups of people out there reporting happy events, but people in the community don't know what those websites are, don't know how to access it. So I'm trying, every night I look at those private, independent, used media groups that haven't got the power of the mighty dollar to to go out there. So what our challenge is through social media, of getting those groups out there so everybody can access some of the good news for a change. But that's a very valid and very good point, so thanks for that group for bringing that up.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I agree with you. I think it's actually on Facebook where I tend to find the positive news stories that people want to share. So that's a really good point. Okay.
Any more questions from the floor?
Oh, Scotty.
That's one.
We don't take questions from men in uniforms.
I too was contemplating the issue of media and how do you influence media to be more positive. Mine's a question, and I know I've often said questions start with who, what, where, why, when. But I just want to express that when I was in Singapore, the messages that were in public spaces around peace, around harmony, through different artworks was very inspiring to me. They didn't use media so much. They obviously used mediums like public spaces and things like that. So that's one area that I think could work a little bit more in Toowoomba.
I think you're right, Scott. It's even the way you present your buildings and your offices and the space and what you've got on the walls and so forth. If it's positive, people feel good, they feel calm, they feel peaceful. So I agree with you.
Fantastic.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I shall now invite someone from group 5 to come up. Thank you.
Everybody, and thank you for this privilege of inviting us here to speak on this topic. In our group, we nominated one of the participants. That's it. Thank you. We nominated one of our participants to be the spokesperson, and I'm very happy to introduce John Pugh, who has agreed to deliver our recommendations and our talk.
Thank you all. I just personally thought to say it's been a fantastic last couple of days. It's been so good to hear from everyone, and we are doing what people are doing and ideas, and it's great to see a movement happening in Toowoomba, and it's something that, as a long-term local, it's great to see. So, can I have our first thing? Thank you. We sort of came from a different aspect, I guess, in our group of how we can actually achieve peace education. And can I have the next slide, please? And I guess what we were looking at is that it's an ongoing process, sorry. It's a gradual and ongoing thing. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. We'd love to see it happen overnight. I'm sure everyone would love to see harmonious Toowoomba, but it's got to be something that's gradual, something that's achievable. So what we were discussing, and it's something I probably have been pushing a little bit the last couple of days in my questions, is that we need to really start from a grassroots approach. And by doing so, we're coming into using schools, instead of using schools, I should say, we come in and use clubs, sporting clubs and societies, Rotary clubs, Apex clubs, scouting clubs, guiding clubs, and start on the impact as a community. So we're starting here in the facets of community. Schools at the moment totally overburdened with national curriculum, very much bureaucratic. So rather than looking at schools, we're looking at a community aspect and starting with our community. The other point on that is to promote religious exchange dialogues with guest speakers in these communities. So peace education is a communal effort because both adults, trainers and children can be involved. So we're looking at it in that aspect, that we use people who are trained and they go out and talk to people, one-to-one. And prejudice need to be diplomatically addressed by society as a whole. I guess, I don't exactly remember, I think that's pretty much explains itself. So we did look a little bit at looking at schools, mainly because it came up with one of our people. And to assist with the improvement of world religion units in schools, we should look at using a feedback system, maybe actually asking teachers from their point of view, are they happy to teach RE in school, religious education, as in schools? And to look at ethics coursework, exposure to different cultures and religions and foster social cohesion. I guess what we're just saying is looking at exposing cultures to children and people and adults. I guess, yep, we'll cover that. Next one, please. We also looked at training of adults, because we also were saying that the family is the most influential aspect of peace education. It has to start at the home. It doesn't start with teachers. It's very easy that we push things onto teachers all the time, that we start with our adults and our families, and community dialogues, mediation for peace in mind. So we're looking at, again, talking to adults again, promoting different exchange dialogues with guest speakers from different denominations, a little bit what we said before. So we're looking at exchanges between maybe Christian and Hindus, etc. And understanding that the family unit is essential, because it is really the family unit is where peace starts. It starts at home. And I think that's about it. So, yeah. I think we covered it, did we?
As you've seen, and I'd include Dr. Happel in this, that we had a discussion, and the idea of including or picking the participant was that we are in action. We are straight into it. We've got action words. We are not only thinking and talking and spreading the news. And you will also notice that we didn't go into the why and what of it too much, because all the speakers have delivered that wonderfully well, especially the last speaker we had. So we got right into the how of it. How are we going to do it? We're going to make our goals achievable. If they are not, we'll review and make changes to evaluate and make it effective.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I will now invite questions from the floor.
Question, comments, reading? Well, that's good.
There we are. We've got one here.
Oh,
Damn. Not that one in a uniform again.
This one is a question. Sometimes I struggle with the how, and I think I said at the last forum, we're all like-minded people in here, we're thinking about peace. The how is how with some of the people that I work with in my chosen profession, how do we engage families? Or to me, that's a very difficult task. So, do we have any answers on how we might achieve that, or what actions we should do to achieve that?
We had a few ideas. We had one idea of actually, I think it was Kim, mentioning that we need to come in even at that just after birth, maybe in maternity wards, providing
early.
Providing not before birth, obviously, but maybe after birth, providing some sort of education process there. The other idea is really, as I said, kids get in sporting groups. It's not hard to bring someone in from a different aspect or culture to do that. So, yeah, that's just throwing up. You got to know. Yeah.
Any other
Not my idea about the birthing.
Joe?
Yep.
I agree with Scott, because we're kind of preaching to the converted here. Like as an educator, and I know there's some other educators here, they would know that when you're in a school, 50% or more of kids in the schools, their parents don't have those necessary tools to teach. Is that the right way of saying it? They just don't have it. That's why we have people who teach how to not be violent. It's not saying the parents aren't good people. It's not their emphasis. So, if you're relying on the parent to teach it, can you give me how you're going to get to those parents who, I hate to say it, don't care?
Yeah. Okay. I think we're also just picking up on one aspect that we did mention parents, and parents are just one aspect of what we were talking about. And as I said, there is Safe Hands, which is similar to what which is I'm not entirely au fait with it, but it's a program. But we're also talking about bringing in on community group levels, because kids also go and play sport. So a lot of kids who play sport can be actually utilised in that aspect, that we can bring in somebody just to play around or something. These are just ideas we're throwing up.
Respectively, they don't play sport from when they're born.
No?
And most parents, mothers particularly, in the maternity wards, they're concentrating on being a new mother. So then they're hardly going to appreciate getting an education on morality and views at that point. They have no idea how to be a parent, so telling them... So I respectively disagree.
Right. Our emphasis here, may I add there, is partnership.
Yep.
Partnership with community and schools. Schools cannot do everything alone. People, community cannot do everything. We have to manage together, and we have to continuously attempt to bring that forward, partnership. I think you know that very well. And I'll give you one very quick example. We don't want to hold the floor too long. There was a father who was very abusive. So what the school did? Bring him on the PCA. He came to PCA and he found out. And he learned for himself and learned for good. So that's how.
Yep.
Is that right, Doctor? So that's where we are coming from. We were emphasizing community partnership in this program, and also the ongoing programs. There are lots of things going, as John has mentioned. We tap into that. We don't have to start from the beginning, because nobody has the time, nobody has the money, nobody has got trained people. So that's our little recommendation.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarwan. Any last question from the floor? Yes, please, in front.
Still have a can of worms.
I remember just after I cut the cord on my son, thinking that, shit, I'm a new dad. Where's the manual?
Yep.
Maybe, here's a thought, without going into a specific religion, maybe we could write the manual and just give that to them.
Yep. On good parenting?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarwan and John. Thank you. I can see that a lot of the points that are being brought up are from a very practical point of view, and that's good. No point having all the theories and the principles. You finally got to apply them on the ground. I shall now call upon the third group to come and present. That's group number 1. Chantal and Ron.
Good afternoon, everybody. Respectfully, I do a lot of talking every other time, so I'm going to let Ron do it today. Ron House, he's been involved with Pure Lands longer than I have, so he's very knowledgeable, and I'm going to let him tell you what we discussed.
We do actually have a slide. I don't know what's happened to that. Yes, you might not be able to read that. I can't read it. So luckily I've written it down. Our group, I think it's probably true of all the groups, the actual discussion had so much depth and nuance in it that it couldn't really be summarised very easily as just a few points. One thing that we were listening to Dr. Ramir's presentation, and somehow or other it led us to ponder the question of there being an established state religion, because there were various problems people found in the schools, or some schools at least, simply assuming everyone is Christian and that's obviously not true about a great many people, and it's not even true of the Christians. I remember maybe 10 years ago the results of the census came out, and from memory the figures were that 78% of us are Christian and 72% of us believe in God. So there's a huge number of parents and children who have no awareness of religion, and that led us to the second point that we considered, that really the thing needs to be broadened to a question of morality and virtues rather than and attitudes towards life and each other and humans and towards animals, the environment and so on, that we need to see this in a more embracing way than just looking at the religions, although that's also important. And we also felt that there are a lot of good programs in the high schools that maybe taking them into lower years might be beneficial as well, that actually from a very early age give children insight into the fact that there are many other views and other beliefs in the world than just our own. So that was another strong point that many people in the group mentioned. Now I'm really oversimplifying. The things I heard people say were so wise and deep, and I couldn't follow half of them. So I'm simplifying this unfairly, I think, to the people who made these points, which were very deep. Now, of course, we also got to the point that parents need to be more involved, and some people also said that this should be in tandem with schools, and I think that possibly happens to some extent. The other aspect of that, of course, is that in Australia for quite a long time, 30, 40 years, I wouldn't like to say exactly how long, but government policy has actually been quite hostile to the authority of parents. And if you have no authority, no rights, it's then a bit unfair for the government to turn around and say to you, well, it's all your fault that your kids are out there misbehaving. So there's many aspects to this involvement of parents, and I think a lot of it has to come down to being more fair to the parents in order for them to then be able to show some leadership towards their children. And the last point that we put on the slide, although there were many other things we talked about, was the politicians that, I don't know, are there any politicians, councillors in the audience right now? They turn up, they come in, they say hello, but they don't stay and join the discussions and actually spend time with people. They just want to sort of catch the drift of things and then wander off. And the feeling of some people in our group was that the politicians and so on need to be much more involved in this kind of event than they have been up till now. So that's a very bare-bones summary of what I found to be a very deep discussion, and thank you to everyone else who was contributing to it. Thank you.
I shall now invite questions from the floor, from the other members of the other groups.
Nothing from Scott?
Well, you're off scot-free. Thank you very much. You have. There is one. Okay. You thought you could get away.
Almost got it.
Not a question, just a comment. I did try looking up the number of Christians in Australia, but unfortunately my smartphone skills are not very good. But from memory, I believe at the last census it was about 61% of Christian-based beliefs, I think. I was just thinking, you said something like...
Yeah, well, I'm quoting these figures from memory, and they may be from the census before, because I lose track of time nowadays.
I've got the same
yes, yeah, but when I heard these figures, it was definitely in the 70s, and there was about 6 or something % more Christians than believers in God. And you know, when you take out the Muslims and Hindus, and you know, obviously our society isn't quite what the evangelicals would like it to be.
I actually think that illustrates that just, you know, not that many, over 50% of Australia is Christian, and yet we're still offering a wholly and solely Christian-based morality, ethics education. Once again, I have nothing against Christians. I'm not, you know, out to upset any Christian group but, you know, almost 40% of the children attending, you know, school have a non-Christian background, but are required to study only Christianity without any other broad sort of knowledge of any other religion. And I think we need to address that at the state and federal level.
That was part of my point. I didn't want to sell short the multiculturalism of Australia. I think everyone should go and work, like, don't believe the 70%, don't believe the 60%, do your own research. I think we're very multicultural.
Can I have the microphone there? Lady in green.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up with that. I'm a teacher in the Catholic education system in Toowoomba, and just recently we have introduced a new curriculum into our primary schools. So this is just for general information. So from year 2, so from about the age of 7, all students learn about the cultural diversity of religions from all around the world. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to educate and to offer the insight for tolerance. Unfortunately, that can't be offered in our state school systems because of educational policy. And I think that's probably, as you were saying, we're talking to the converted, but we face a great uphill battle in our political system and the introduction of sacred text and studies when we are living in an ever-increasing secular society.
I think that's really great. I think that's really great to hear. And as you said, the Education Queensland, the great thing about private schools in comparison to public schools is that as they find a better curriculum, they're able to implement it. So they get a more divergent and a better way of teaching. The Queensland education system has to stick to the one program, so there's no moving around. So it's really great to see Catholic schools incorporating it, but I still wonder, is it taught from a Catholic perspective, or is it, because I went to Australian Catholic University, and even in my interfaith dialogue course it was still taught from the Wayne Teasdale's perspective, which is particularly he was a Catholic priest. So that's...
Thank you, Chantal. All right, one last question from here for this group.
Thank you very much. Look, I was a member of that actual group, but I'd say, look, it's not really teachers that are failing. Teachers are definitely not failing the system. I've got a wife and 2 children of the teachers, and I rarely see my wife. Often she's off to school at 6 o'clock in the morning, even as early as 5, comes home and then comes home, does her tea, and then she's in bed at 10 o'clock, still with the laptop on her lap, and then again Sunday afternoon. So I put in a tremendous amount of energy and effort and time and this applies to 99% of teachers. And what I'm basically going to say is the education system is grossly failing our youth in a lot of aspects. Now, particularly, just going back for an instance to high school students just left grade 12, what do they know about financial planning? What do they know about marriage counselling, marriage guidance? What do they know about crisis management skills? What do they know about child raising? These are the things that are foundations for making any good community, and yet it's not being taught. I'm very glad, and I'd like to endorse and congratulate the Catholic education system for bringing that in, by the way, at such an early age of grade 2. We once again talked about that. But it's more a comment than a question. But until we, and just in relation to what Ron said about getting our political leaders here, even if they had one councillor here, and then for one afternoon, then followed by another councillor and to do the morning session, the afternoon session, but there's no excuse whatsoever why we can't get a federal leader, state leaders, or not leaders, but state politicians, federal politicians, and community leaders back to this. Until that happens, until we have a representative, the person that writes the green papers, the white papers, and indeed holds the portfolio.
Thank you very much for those comments here. But I think we shall excuse the politicians from Canberra because of what's been happening over the last couple of days. Right, thank you very much, Ron and Chantel. I shall now call the members of the fourth group, Group 4, Mark and Sophie, to come up and do their presentation. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So our group focused on youth perspective, and when we were talking, I think the first question that came up was, why do we need to educate young people about peace and, peace? And I think we answered that question by saying that there's more violence, like there's an increase in violence in our society now. And I think the next question was, how are we going to change that? And we realized that we were being influenced by our parents, our guardians, and our media. And if we can somehow change if we can, how am I going to put this? If we can learn from them and change their ways, then maybe we can change the youth perspective as well, I guess. Sorry. Okay, I'll just pass on to Alex to talk about this.
Yes, that's the one. We found, like anything, marketing is a huge tool. It can be a tool and it can be a weapon per se, but as used as a tool, like a hammer, it can be used as a weapon as a tool. And used as a tool, you can market peace, and we can market anything. Like we were discussing, a market person coming here and market anything to sell to you. Obviously, we're not selling peace, but we're marketing it. So today's generation, today's youth, you only do something if it's cool per se, And if peace is cool, well, then why not do it, right? I mean, it's cool and it's good, and that's what we need to sort of do, is just market it to the youth. And that's what we're mainly focusing on here, is the youth, because the youth is going to be the next generation, and next generation of leaders and everything, and we need to educate the youth basically. So this is the one I couldn't read my writing. Yes, that's also what it was. Like it says, we need to utilise marketing and also social media. I think the other group talked about as well. Social media is a huge aspect, and again, it can be used for good and for bad. And if it's used for good, well, it can be used for a massive market. Just about every single young person is on Facebook or Twitter or anything, and using that to promote it is just a really good way, and has enormous influence, as it says up there. Okay. All right. I was trying to read a bit there. How can we change the mindset of parents? That's a very good idea. Point. Basically, you see those ads. It's happened nowadays. We had an example in the group where a parent said, "Oh yeah, I wasn't wearing my hat outdoors." He said that when he grew up, he didn't have to wear a hat outdoors, and now his children are telling him to wear hats because they've been taught. So basically, the children follow the parents' example, but it also works the other way. The children can be the leaders and come up with new ideas and say, well, wear your hat because it gives you sun cancer. Or even with the anti-smoking campaign, children are a big factor because they want their parents there when they grow up, and they know that it's an important thing to do, to not smoke. And that all goes back to peace. If the adults are peace and do things right and follow by example, follow well, the children will. If not, well, yeah, it all comes back to the leaders as well. So, is that mine? We said we wouldn't be able to read that, and we were right. We can't read that.
Can somebody read off from here?
I think I think it's talking about how schools, like the schools in Toowoomba, are one of the biggest assets that we have, and we therefore need to harness the potential that this asset can have. So our school, St Ursula's, had the initiative this year to kind of resurrect the Captain's Council, which is the school leaders from all the schools in Toowoomba that meet once a term, and that way we can communicate with each other about what's happening within our schools and what we can be doing together to help the community. So we came up with one suggestion of what we could do, and it's working towards unifying the Toowoomba schools. We're so competitive that we're segregated because of the school that we come from. I'm not saying that competitiveness is a bad thing. I'm probably the most competitive person in Toowoomba, but it's sometimes that this competitiveness hinders our capability to work harmoniously. So we came up with the idea to have an event possibly hosted at USQ, where all the schools in Toowoomba would be invited, and it would just be, a day of fun where we could have, basketball competitions, debating, different kind of stuff, different kinds of things, and each school would have a little stall that would, if their school's focused on a charity or an organisation for the year, then we can communicate that with the other schools so that we all know what's going on. Is there another slide? Oh, yep, I just said that. Oh, yeah, and we're going to create this afternoon a school Facebook group for the youth that was in our group. That way we can communicate with each other and keep it going instead of just coming up with a great idea and then letting it, fade away. Next, that's it. Okay, thank you.
While they were talking, I got reminded, sometimes even in my own home, I wonder who's the father and who's the son. Yes, you have a question.
Go ahead.
Nope. Oh, hang on. Here we go. You were talking about using the social media and having a group for yourselves. Have you thought about expanding that? I mean, the big advantage of Facebook is it's taking... there was a brilliant concept in the 90s about networking. Everything was about networking, focusing on networking, getting out and meeting other people and networking. And that's one thing I've noticed that Facebook is very, very good at. But it needs people to put the effort into reaching out and interacting. Now, if you're going to do this marvellous group, are you going to be letting other people in? Are you going to be popping it up? There's a Toowoomba Facebook group. There's a group of Toowoomba's great, but how can we improve it? There's a couple of other, some of the groups that deal with disabilities and things like that. Are you intending to reach out for them and getting them involved, or at least telling people that they're there?
Yeah, we wanted to start it off with just who was in our group. That way we can control what's on there. And I think once it expands, once we can, maybe once we get this event into motion, we would make it just a Toowoomba group that anyone can join. And I can't remember who said it, but I still believe that, one of the most powerful forms of connecting with people is word of mouth. So, once, if we're in it and we tell people in our school, and then it just eventually gets bigger. So, I definitely think that it would become a general, like a public Facebook page.
Thank you. One last question for this group, if any. Yes, please. John?
I don't want to generalise too much, but you mentioned earlier about the role of violence. I guess when I think about violence particularly, and I'm not trying to stereotype any particular group, whether it's youth or older, but drugs and alcohol, and well, alcohol is a drug, but the role of that education in that process, because unfortunately I know probably the police would know quite well about the role of alcohol and violence, particularly in Toowoomba after midnight. What have you considered that sort of aspect, that sort of campaign too, towards
well, something we agreed on in our group was basically that things are getting more violent, but we're also becoming more harmonising as a society. Like someone mentioned, 20 years ago there wasn't any Indian restaurants, there wasn't any culture around Toowoomba. Now look how many cultural things you see, how many cultural people. Like just look at USQ. I think we got 20,000 international students. It's blown up. I mean, we're so harmonising with each other. Yes, we are getting violent, and I think that's a main thing. We do need to educate people to become peace. Why become violent when we can just sort other problems out and stuff? And that's something we do need to target. And I think by the schools coming together as captains as well, that can really help. Harmonising people. So.
All right, Alex.
I think what Alex said is true, that we are. I don't think it's that we're getting violent. I think that violence has always been around, but it's now that we have this amazing monopolised resource that is the media, that we see the violence a lot more. The media is all about money, and violence and bad stuff is what people are interested in. It's kind of sad, but it is what sells. So I think that, we might not be getting more violent, it's just that the bits of violence are broadcasted now that we have the media.
Right, Claire, thank you. Thank you very much, Claire, Arutha, and Alex. I'm mindful of the time. We have 11 minutes, and I've got one more group to go. I'll call Syed and Taisu Kim to come forward. Oh, thank you.
Actually, our group followed exactly what are given to us as a title: Peace, Education, Why, What, How. We started discussing that, agreeing that we have been discussing the definition of peace and how we promote peace last 2 days, yesterday and today. Therefore, we may not have to revisit the definition of peace. But while we are going through and inviting all the inputs from our groups, and I'm so very pleased to tell you that most of our group members had the opportunity to make a contribution. So, middle of it, we realized that we really want to actually know what peace is. So peace starts with oneself, peace with the fellow human beings, peace with the environment, peace with God. So once we got this thing sort of in our minds, we started a fairly small sort of a circle. And education, well, who is going to need peace education? Well, straight we went into it. Younger generation, of course, because they have been so much influenced by social media and excessive disruption towards education, which becomes our concern. And then one member said, we lost teaching our children the gratitude, how to appreciate what we are given, what we have during the education process. Balanced education, peace education. Then we realized that we were actually addressing the responsibility mainly at the educational institution when children start school. But we realized, of course, education starts from much earlier age. And the parent roles in peace education, home education, how to live with our neighbors. And then means what we meant was how parents is going to demonstrate and to act as a model. If we have a peaceful relationships with our neighbors, then children are going to learn from parents. It's not only for 5 years at the schools or 12 years. It is really lifelong skills, and we really need to learn and relearn during our lives from very early age until we die. And we learn from extended family members and neighbors. And the team gave a very good example in our Aboriginal community. Of course, they learn all those lifelong skills when they are very young from their parents, brothers and sisters, and aunts and uncles. We lost that because in urban society, we just don't see even uncles anymore. And the peace education is not limited to academic aspect only, but it is a lifelong process as education, as we say. And then what is peace education, therefore? Well, first we thought was there is so much technology around, and in some ways they can be very disruptive, but if we can embrace technology and use them to our advantage, and I think another group, especially young group, addressed that. But technology must be made human-friendly. If we let one mobile phone talk to another mobile phone all day long, well, that is not going to promote very much fellowship among people. So must be made human-friendly. Also, back to interacting with the people. Without interacting people constantly, continuously, in a positive way, there is no possibility we can actually even start a peace procession. Communicate with each other with respect, non-academic, and there is no model pass on knowledge to the next. That's what we lost at the moment. We lost that passing on the skills to our next in interaction. Then how to achieve peace education? We actually recommend a peace day in Toowoomba community. We have a Harmony Day, we have all other multicultural festivals, and if we want Toowoomba as the city of peace, model city of peace, then why not we have a peace day in Toowoomba community? And we can use that peace day as an open day by all religious and even educational institutions and schools to celebrate peace day or peace by visitation by people. One member gave us a very interesting example in Singapore that during Easter they invited Islamic friends come and celebrate Easter. And during the Ramadan, they invited the Uniting Church people. Would you like to actually celebrate your Ramadan with us at our church? And we thought that was just wonderful. It can't be done, of course, on one day, because how many churches and mosques can you visit in a day? But we can actually spread out during the day.
Finish off? Can we finish off? Yeah.
Yes. And then another recommendation was 21st of September is conjunction with the United Nations. We can actually have a school peace day. And we think Pure Land Learning College may organize these programs and the School Peace Day, Open Day, but we could still also work with Toowoomba Regional Council because they are very supportive and mindful about creating, promoting peaceful city. And they could work with us, creating this very good celebration. It's a celebration we really want to happen in Toowoomba, rather than blaming or politicians. Oh, well, sometimes they need to be blamed. But, but it's a celebration. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite questions, couple of questions from the floor. Yes. Sorry, you want to pick this up?
Hello, we on? Yeah, you talk about, it's a good idea, I think, to have a peace day, but that's only once a year. Perhaps we could extend that. Perhaps we could have one peace day every week, a weekly peace day. Now for instance, the Muslims speak, the Muslims pray. Friday is a particular day for prayer in Islam. Could we not make Friday of every week of the year a peace day?
Thank you. Any other question? One last question, okay.
We do have a weekly peace day, Frank. It's called Shabbat. But they do it on Friday as well, don't they? Muslims? Islam?
Maybe I would like to answer Dr. Heppel. Maybe instead of weekly, maybe we will waste many resources. Maybe I would suggest quarterly, where the church will invite the mosque committee and so on and so forth. And when it comes to the peace day on the 21st of September, we have every churches, institution, educational, so on and so forth, together we celebrate. And maybe Pure Land can be the main platform. Do I answer your question?
Thank you. All right, I shall thank Syed and Tai Soo Kim. Thank you very much.
No more questions?
We have now come to the end of this particular portion for discussion. And I think mainly there are just 2 or 3 points that have come up again and again. Firstly, the need for respect within the family, which will spill over to harmony within the community by and large. We shall come out from within the house to outside the house. And this will, of course, once it's done frequently enough, in enough locations, there will be much more peace in the world than we have today. It gives me pleasure to now ask you to join me to thank, by a very loud applause, all your points for the participation that you had, and for those who came up here to do the presentations for their various groups. I shall now call upon the MC to give you what needs to be done from tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.